I've got a love-hate relationship with games that so clearly copy the success of another title. You see this a lot with Souls-likes, where on one hand, everything is so obviously lifted from another game that even the UI looks identical. Sometimes it's so deliberate that I'm scratching my head wondering how this isn't copyright infringement. On the other hand, these games usually have some kind of spin that makes them unique enough to be worth playing, and I can't deny that I often end up enjoying them. Sworn definitely falls into this trap. Only 10 seconds into the gameplay trailer and I was already like, oh, it's Hades. And while there are definitely a handful of things that make Sworn stand out from its clear inspiration, after finishing the game I couldn't help but feel like Sworn is just the classic meme of we have Hades at home. Although I should mention, it is co-op, which is pretty sweet. The story of Sworn puts a spin on the classic legend of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. In Sworn, Arthur has claimed the Holy Grail and with it, immortality. Unfortunately, that immortality comes at a cost, corrupting both himself and his followers. Merlin, in a desperate attempt to end Arthur's rule, harnesses undying souls to create his own immortal army. That sets the stage for the classic roguelite formula. You play as one of these souls, reborn after every defeat, growing stronger with each attempt as you push further and further into Camelot. As I mentioned earlier, the gameplay will look very familiar to Hades fans. Combat plays out as a top-down hack and slash where you'll move between chambers, dodging enemy attacks and traps until either the room is cleared or you're finally defeated. Upon clearing a room, you'll earn an upgrade or one of several currencies that can be spent back at your home base. These currencies can be spent to unlock new characters, weapons, abilities, and more. This system is probably the most unique thing Sworn introduces. In classic roguelite fashion, most of your strategy comes from temporary upgrades you earn during a run, upgrades that are lost when you're defeated. But unlike other roguelites I've played, Sworn offers a surprising amount of customization before you even start a run. There are 4 playable characters, all with different strengths and weaknesses. Also, each have 4 unique weapons and 4 unique abilities. With so many combinations available, you can build a strategy before you even leave the starting area. I really appreciated this level of customization, especially when playing with friends. It made each run feel different, and I found myself eager to experiment with different setups and see how they interacted with my teammates. Unfortunately, there's a pretty serious downside to this system. Similar to Hades, the most common upgrades you'll find during the run are blessings. In Hades, these come from Greek gods. In Sworn, they come from Fae characters. And to be honest, these blessings just don't feel very well thought out. Essentially, each Fae provides a unique buff. One might apply a stacking chill effect, another inflicts poison, and so on. Each blessing modifies one of your attacks, light, heavy, your spell, or a couple of others. As you collect more blessings from the same Fae, you unlock additional effects and modifiers that build on that theme. For example, a poisoned enemy might explode on death, damaging nearby foes. Here's where my 2 biggest problems come in. First, some effects are clearly better with specific weapons. Let's use poison again as an example. Poison stacks up to 10 times with each hit applying 1 stack. That obviously works better with weapons with high attack speed. If you're using a slower character with a heavy-hitting weapon, poison becomes almost useless. And that pattern repeats itself across the board. About half of the Fae end up being undesirable purely based on your weapon of choice. The second issue comes down to the randomness of upgrades. Let's say you're running a Fury build. Fury buffs increase your damage with each hit, but your stacks decay if you stop attacking. Ideally, you'd want every attack type to apply Fury stacks so you can reach your damage cap faster, plus you'll want bonuses that make the effect stronger. The only way to do that is by collecting blessings from that one specific Fae. But since the Fae you encounter are random, you'll often go an entire run without getting what you need. You might start a run thinking you're building Fury, but if the RNG doesn't cooperate, you'll end up with an unrelated ice buff on your heavy attack that barely does anything. The core problem is that Sworn consistently rewards you for limiting how many different Fae you draw blessings from. Yes, there are neat combinations you can come up with, but because so many upgrades are limited to just one specific effect, like increasing the maximum amount of Fury stacks that you can have, you are de-incentivized to mix and match. So instead of adapting to what the game gives you, you're constantly trying to manipulate the odds to get the exact setup you want. And if you don't, well, I guess there's always next run. The combat itself does feel pretty solid. There's a good variety of enemies with unique attacks that keep fights interesting. Some fire mortars from a distance, others obscure your vision, and most cover large areas with large sweeping attacks. All of this keeps you moving and ensures that you stay on your game. That said, even with solid combat, things start to feel repetitive. Each run doesn't change very much outside of a few optional chambers or challenges that give extra rewards. The structure stays mostly the same. Each area has 2 mini-bosses and you'll face one of them randomly about halfway through the zone. That adds a little freshness, but not enough to keep the experience exciting long term. The story doesn't really help to move anything forward either. Right from the start, you're well aware of what your mission is, and there isn't really anything to do outside of continuously pursuing completing a run. There aren't many characters, and none of them really have anything to say whatsoever. Nothing changes around your home base except for unlocking a few new shops, so ultimately there really isn't anything here driving you forward outside of your own desire to play and complete the game. After completing your first run, you will unlock a new objective that does lead to a new final boss and a true ending. You'll also unlock higher difficulties for extra replayability, but honestly, after finishing my first run, I felt satisfied. I didn't really feel the urge to keep grinding. In a lot of ways, Sworn is ambitious. It takes cooperative RPG elements and weaves them into a cohesive hack and slash roguelite that, at least on paper, sounds like a blast with friends or siblings. And to be fair, it is fun to play together. But Sworn draws so heavily from Hades that it's hard to even give Windwalk games much credit for originality. The vast majority of its core loop feels directly pulled from Hades, and unfortunately, it just isn't executed as well. For that reason alone, it's hard to recommend playing Sworn, especially now that Hades 2 is out. Thank you everybody for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to like and subscribe and follow us on Twitch for live content. Until next time, cheers!